Good morning, good afternoon, and good evening to everyone. My name is Cecile Frumin. I'm the Director for Regional Integration Engagement for South Asia at the World Bank. And it is my pleasure to welcome you to our 8th One South Asia conversation. Our topic today is Path to Recovery, Embracing Intra-Regional Investments in South Asia. This is a bi-monthly series where we discuss issues related to regional integration and cooperation in South Asia. Our approach to regional integration in South Asia has 3 pillars of focus. The first is on enhancing economic connectivity. The second on reducing vulnerability and building resilience, in particular to climate change. And the last is human capital. Today's conversation is very much related to the first pillar of economic connectivity. And the central question that we will be addressing is how do we promote greater economic engagements and investments in the region? This event coincides with the launch of our new report, which explores intra-regional investments. The title of the report is Regional Investment Pioneers in South Asia, The Payoff of Knowing Your Neighbors. The report is on our event page, and I highly recommend that you take a look at it. So many of us know that intra-regional trade in South Asia is at very low levels, barely 5 to 6% of the total trade in the region, compared to 50% in East Asia. Yet what is less known is that intra-regional investments are at equally low levels. Inward intra-regional FDI is less than 1% of the total inward FDI from the world. And for women-led businesses, intra-regional investments are even much lower. So trade and investments are closely linked, and they are drivers of growth, of jobs, and poverty reduction. And post-COVID-19, we believe that intra-regional trade and investments will become all the more important to growth and inclusive recovery across all sectors, and in particular in the services sectors, which are rapidly growing in South Asia. So our discussion today will focus on embracing the potential of intra-regional investments, both inward and outward bound, and understanding the various constraints. And to do so, we have an amazing panel with us today. We have Mrs. Farina Mazar. She's the Secretary of the Board of Investment in Pakistan. Mr. Hector Gomez Ang is IFC's Regional Director for South Asia, and IFC is the private sector arm of the World Bank Group. Mr. Sanjay Katuria is a fellow at the Wilson Center, was previously for many years with the World Bank, and he is one of the co-authors of the report that I just mentioned. And Mr. Ahsan Khan Chowdhury is the CEO of Pran RFL Group, the largest agribusiness conglomerate in Bangladesh, which has been expanding its operations in South Asia, and he'll be sharing his story with us. So before we dig right into the topic, just a couple of reminders. We have a poll on our page. It's at the bottom of the page. If you scroll down, we invite you to take the poll, and we'll be sharing the results at the end of this event. You can also post your questions on the page. We'll try to address a few during the conversation. We also have 2 guest bloggers with us, Mr. Gonzalo Varela, who's a senior economist with the bank, and Mr. Ravi Yatawara, who is one of the co-authors of the report. And they will be answering your questions live also as this discussion unfolds. So without further ado, let me turn first to Sanjay. Sanjay, your report makes a very strong case for intra-regional investments, especially in this post-COVID times. Can you tell us what sort of the key findings are, and mostly where you saw opportunities and the main challenges that you encountered also? Thank you, Sanjay. Over to you.
Thank you, Cecile. And I'd like to thank my co-authors, Ravi Yatawara, whom you mentioned, and Xiao Su for helping us and producing this report, I think, which hopefully will provide a lot of food for thought for everybody. So in terms of the opportunities, I'd like to start by highlighting some of the long-term trends in world trade and world economic engagement that have actually been magnified or accelerated by COVID-19. One is the focus on global value chain diversification and shifting such value chains closer to home. We've seen that a lot of talk about that. There is also the rising trade and connectivity costs globally, where long distance containers, the prices have gone up from, we know, this is all over the news, $2,000 to $20,000, $18,000, and so on. So there is a huge and massive increase in trade costs, albeit hopefully this will go down in coming months. There is also the importance of services in global recovery. We know that the global recovery has been much more focused on the goods side, but services have yet to bounce back to pre-pandemic levels. And there is, in South Asia, the services sector is growing and is very important. There is also the expanding regional consumer markets in South Asia based on shared prosperity and strong economic growth. And then in South Asia, there is the potential, which has been unrealized, which is the potential for regional trade to provide the buoyancy, which is often absent in world trade, and the kind of counter-cyclicality, against pivoting away from world trade, focusing on the region. So I think for all these reasons, there should be a receptivity and an energy to explore the region deeper with renewed motivation, because the regional opportunities have come knocking at our door again. And in our survey, we did a survey of 1,274 firms in all the 8 countries in the region. We found actually that 65% of first investments were actually in the region. So there is a basis for a deeper level of engagement, fueled by the links between trade, investment, and connectivity. And from a private sector perspective, the pioneer firms, that is, firms that have actually crossed borders in an intrepid and innovative way, such as Pran, represented by Ehsan here. There are expanding consumer markets which provide different kind of demand from that which is available in higher income countries. There is the production efficiencies. Many firms from South Asia have kind of relocated or have made use of these value chains, and there are examples even in the report about investments from India to Sri Lanka to India, India to Nepal, and so on. There is also the issue of value chain management and brand upgrading, where the region again can provide a platform for demand, for experimentation, and so on. And then finally, from a private sector perspective, I would say there is also the rise of non-equity modes of investment, right? So including relational contracting. So the region has afforded pioneer investors all kinds of ways of engaging. And I think that, and me and my co-authors think that this provides possibilities for deeper engagement. But you also asked, Cecile, about challenges. So there are all these things that are happening which should energize regional engagement, economic engagement. But very briefly, what are the challenges? Well, the first one, of course, is the traditional lack of engagement within the region. So when trading or investing, we know all about that. But from a business community perspective, something that we've talked about a lot in the report, which is one of the highlights, is the low knowledge connectivity. And I will try to expand on that later if I get a chance. But the average score on knowledge connectivity between country pairs was only 1.9 versus a high of 4. So this creates a high cost of search, matching, and contracting. From a firm capacity perspective, also knowledge doesn't travel easily. Even if there is a pioneer investor, the sort of knowledge tends to stay within the group of that pioneer investor, and it doesn't travel easily to firms outside that conglomerate or group. So we call it the case of the missing herd in South Asia. And finally, from a government and institutional perspective, there are all kinds of restrictive outward foreign investment policies in most countries. And hopefully I'll get a chance to talk a little bit more about that. Thank you.
Thank you, Sanjay. I'm going to turn to Hector now. So Hector, IFC is working to promote inclusive growth in South Asia by improving infrastructure, financial services, and supporting the private sector. How does intra-regional investments fit into IFC's overall strategy in South Asia?
Thanks, Cecile, and thanks for the invitation. I think this is very, very timely. Look, I mean, maybe one thing important about IFC is that our mission, which is to support the private sector, it gets accomplished through our clients, right? Through our private sector clients. So it really has to be what private sector clients are doing that we are able to support. Now, we together with the World Bank, so as a World Bank group, we clearly have regional integration as a top priority for South Asia. In particular, I think regional infrastructure and what we call South-South investments, right? So essentially, companies from emerging markets investing in other emerging markets. I think the logic behind it is that companies in emerging markets tend to have a higher tolerance for risk, and they're more used to the specifics of working in emerging markets. So those are, sort of big picture. Now, when it comes to more details, I think some of the stuff that we are doing or we are looking at very actively, it's I think regional power trade. We think this is something that makes a lot of sense in South Asia, that it can help green the energy matrix of some countries. It can make up for some of the deficiencies in some countries you don't have either natural conditions or enough space or the wind to do more renewables, but you do have in other countries. You have hydro in some, so I think you can play with that and build, but to do that, you need to have a working regional power trade sort of structure and regulation, right? So this is something that we've been working together with the bank, but also with private companies. So for instance, we are, as we speak, we are discussing with two large groups to essentially, build a cross-border power trade by putting assets on one side and sort of the usage on the other side, because we believe that it's only by doing that then these models will be replicated, right? So we are working together to support that. I think the other piece is transport connectivity. So transport, probably the most emblematic stuff that we're doing is around port terminals that would then connect it to multimodal, whether it's railways or roads, can actually provide access to ports to some of these, to some countries. So this is the other play. I think there is, and I'm just gonna go a little bit outside of the whole trade thing. I think on the challenges side, part of the solutions that we see for climate change in the region are going to have to be regional. So it's not, that's the other piece. And then I think on the South-South, which is essentially supporting companies to go to other markets, we've been very much engaged, but I think we have a lot of room to grow, right? So I mean, I can mention some companies, but it tends to be mostly from South Asia going into Africa, for instance, is something that we've done a lot. We've done a lot of leading Asian companies coming into or investing into South Asia from outside of the region, but very few actually within South Asia, right? And I think this is what we see as the opportunity here. Some of the stuff that we think is gonna come up, and we have very high hopes that it will be a lot of intra-South Asian opportunities. I think one is private equity and venture capital. We have a global experience where these type of investors tend to want to have a regional sort of a regional scope. It helps diversify risk. It helps open up more markets. So we're really looking into it, particularly on the tech side. For instance, the whole play in Sri Lanka would be around using Sri Lanka technology or startups to actually enter the larger markets in the region, for instance, just to oversimplify, right? So that's the kind of play that we see. Digital connectivity, we think it has to be a regional play. I think there are some emerging businesses that we hope that because they're new and they come without baggage to a certain extent, that they develop in a more regional way, following the logic, right? But then, of course, we need to work on the enabling environment. Hopefully, we can get to talk about that, like electric vehicles, right? So that's coming, or it's here already, and we're hoping and working and engaging, so it hopefully develops in a more regional way. Housing, we believe. I mean, it's an industry that we've seen in other regions developing at a regional level. And I guess the final one I'll mention is capital markets, right? So capital markets tends to be really on a national level, but in some regions, and I think there is a logic to do it, if not the operation of the capital markets, but the use of funds and companies from one country issuing in another country, I think that's something that has a lot of logic in South Asia. I'll stop there. Thank you.
Great. Thank you, Hector. And thank you for articulating these opportunities. And it's quite a hopeful outlook you've portrayed there. Farina, we're going to move to you. And it's interesting in this report, it documents that actually Pakistan has been investing quite a lot in the region. And Pakistan's earliest intra-regional investment goes way back to 1951, a banking branch of the Habib Bank in Sri Lanka. So over the years, can you tell us what has been the trajectory of Pakistan supporting inward and outward bound investments from the region and into the region? And post-COVID, do you see any changes? What's the future going to look like? Over to you.
Thank you so much. Thank you for giving me this opportunity to be talking to this forum today. I would like to say that originally Pakistan did not have a very liberal investment regime. They had restricted sectors which were open for investment. But since 1976, we opened up and we started promulgating new acts and ordinances allowing investments in all sectors. So at the moment, we are following a liberal regime. Then in 2013, also a policy was introduced which opened up all the sectors for investment except for agriculture, banking, I think aviation. Other than that, all sectors are open for the economy. So Pakistan, unfortunately, has not been receiving the amount of foreign direct investments, which I genuinely believe that it deserves. Primarily, it has been a victim of terrorism. People have been scared to come to the country. Now the issue is somewhat resolved. And other than that, we did have energy shortages in the past. So they did also have, that was an impediment for the investors to be coming and investing in Pakistan. But fortunately, we've overcome both these issues, and now our liberal investment regimes, which allows 100% repatriation of profits and investment in any sector without any cap regarding the minimum or the maximum investments. And I think it's one of the most liberal regimes in the world. And we are hoping to get new investments in the country. Fortunately, we've not been hit by COVID as bad as other countries, especially in Europe. And that has not affected our inward investments in the way it did for other countries. And we're almost close to the post-COVID numbers right now. And we are hoping that the new investors which have promised us, they've asked for certain incentives, we will be giving them those incentives and they will also be coming to Pakistan. We have a very liberal special economic zones regime, which offers a 10 years exemption on income. And also you can import the plant and machinery free of duties and taxes. So these are the main incentives in the special economic zones. Also, we have sectoral policies to encourage our investments. We have an electronic vehicle policy in place. We have the mobile manufacturing policies. Then we've given massive incentives for the export sector, providing them loans on very low interest. And this government especially is laying a lot of focus on the ease of doing business. And I think everybody will be appreciating that we improved 39 positions in the last 2 years when the report on ease of doing business was there. And unfortunately, the report discontinued this year. We were hoping for further increases in the positions because we had made massive reforms in that context, and we just to invite investors in the country, we're trying to make all possible facilitation measures which we can. We have a new, we have a new investment law. The draft is already there. It just needs the approval from the parliament, and that too creates opportunities for dispute resolution, which we think is another going to be a very big, focus for the local and the foreign investors, and something of interest to them. Pakistan is offering around 180 billion as a one-time emergency cash grant to 15 million beneficiaries. So this was the ESAS program of the government. This was a major initiative in the COVID times, just to come up and meet the challenges of the COVID and to help the poor people of the country, especially the labor class. This has proven to be a very big incentive for the businesses to recover. Also, for the small and medium companies, there's a special finance package and a special regime for taxation, just to facilitate them come out of the COVID. So Pakistan, unfortunately, does not have a lot of investments within the region. We do have a bank, and our another company has invested Surti in Bangladesh in the denim manufacturing, and but we do not we encourage their investment outwards also. And the foreign exchange manual, it has recently undergone a lot of changes, and it has made investments in the region, both inward and outward, very friendly and easy to do. So this is what I wanted to share with you on this account.
Great, thank you very much, Verena. And I think what you described is very significant progress and progression, and still room to grow interregionally, clearly. Wonderful. Asan, your company is the largest food and beverage conglomerate in Bangladesh. And in 2008, you opened your first production facility in Tripura, India, after the Indian government lifted the ban on FDI from Bangladesh. And India today is one of your largest markets. This year, you even started using the river route to export goods to India. So can you tell us about this experience of moving into India, and what future investment prospects do you have for the region?
Thank you very much for giving me the opportunity to talk. First of all, my experience in India has been extremely positive. And I tell you, quoting from Sanjay Bhai's talk, I feel the opportunities in the regional trade is very high. And again, referring to Sanjay Bhai, I will say that after COVID, it's a new world in our part of the region. I feel that subcontinent is going to grow, and COVID has given us tremendous amount of boost in terms of the consumption, and tremendous amount of energy, and tremendous amount of reciprocity in the region. So when we started, I feel that people have a lot of stereotypes. So people did not know what the investment in India is going to be, and whether our regulator is going to allow. So it was very tough. But once we were there, I feel that experience were very positive, and I feel that we kind of found a new consumer market out there, and the buoyancy that Sanjay Bhai was talking about in his report, also buoyancy for the world trade. I feel that we find it in the region. If you ask me about Pran's experience, I would say that.
Oops, it looks like we've lost
tremendous amount. I feel that tremendous amount of opportunity is coming from the region, and the buoyancy is huge. And I feel that it's mainly a mindset game. And from the regulator side, it is lack of understanding. And I feel that this foreign currency manual that Madam was referring to, we had the same problem in Bangladesh, where our regulators also had to refer, and Indian regulators also had to refer to those foreign currency manuals or the regulation that they had, which were backed for 40 years. And I think that Sanjay Bhai's idea is that there's a new opportunity that the business people would like to experience. And I feel that there is tremendous amount of opportunity in the region if people are just able to have an open mindset, and people are becoming a little bit outwardly in terms of what they want to explore. I think there's a wonderful world out there that has to be explored, and I think the business prospect is going to come from our regional trade and post-COVID buoyancy that Sanjay Bhai was talking about through his report. I'm sure we are going to find that in our regional markets. Thank you very much.
Great, Ahsan. And any plans to expand further in the region?
I have got too many plans, and I think my friends in IFC and my friends in the regional market gets very nervous when I start telling my plans. I can tell you, like, so we started with northeast part of India. We have opened up in eastern part of India. We've got a factory in Calcutta. We are setting up in Siliguri. We are going to be in the southern part of India in a place called Tumkur. We are in north in Uttarakhand. And India, I don't consider to be a country. I consider to be a continent. So for a small company called Pran operating from Bangladesh, India is a world out there which we are there to explore. And Nepal is also not very far away. Thanks to the Nepal government that they imposed almost 100% duty on all Pran products coming into Nepal. And I feel that was one of the best things that could have happened to Pran, that we were able to start up almost like 3 plants in a matter of 1 year in Nepal. So Nepal business is looking good. Again, like say with Taliban coming into the government in Afghanistan, we were exporting a lot of products in Afghanistan, but no problem. After there is a new change in thought in Afghanistan, we are able to start hopefully in the local manufacturing, doing contracting out with some local Afghan people, and able to have the product available for the consumers, even in the Afghan market. So, and I feel that our duty structures between Bangladesh and Pakistan will improve after we have a chance to explain to Madam. Maybe the duties will come down and we'll be able to do more business with Pakistan, and we'll be able to connect more and more regionally.
Great, Ahsan. Great to see you so upbeat. So Farina, maybe a good segue to come back to you. What you described as a real effort to liberalize and attract FDI globally. Can you tell us a little bit more? Do you have any specific focus on the region, any activities or policies? And also talk to us a little bit about support for women investors, women looking to bring investments into Pakistan or invest outside of Pakistan.
As far as our policies are concerned, they are just the same policy for everyone. It's no specific policy for any specific region as of now. And unfortunately, no specific incentive for the women also at the moment. It's generally the same, but there's no impediment also. We do not bar women from entering certain services or certain sectors. So it's the same policy for everyone, which I again say is very liberal. It's the same regime for the local as well as the foreign investor. Anyone can come and invest. The Board of Investment serves as the one window, and anyone who wants to seek an investment opportunity, we have a projects portal running where you have all the listed projects coming from the government, and they are also there with the timelines, and you can see which sector you want to invest in or the amount that you can invest in. And then we take them from there, and we also follow them up for any assistance or facilitation which they may require. And then we have these offices in the provincial setups, because Pakistan is a federation. We have a a central government and the provincial governments, and then the local governments. So we have business regulations at 3 levels. It at times becomes very cumbersome for the investors to come and invest in the country. But the reforms that we are doing in respect of these business regulations are at all 3 tiers. So the Board of Investment is working on setting up a Pakistan business portal, which is going to be a state-of-the-art one window stop shop for all the local as well as the international investors. Through the portal, you can see which sector requires which regulations, and if you want to start a business in any particular region in a country, what are the laws applicable there, what is the availability of land and other usages. You can do everything, make online payments. So the system will be ready in another a year and a half by June 2023. So we are really hoping that this will bring a big boost to our investment regime and will be a big facilitator for the investors. Um, Next to that, I think the special this we have set up these special economic zones, but there are 4 economic zones under the China-Pakistan Economic Corridor. I'd like to mention that these CPEC SEZs are not just specific to China. They're open to anyone in the world, any investor, either local or foreign. They can come and they can invest there, and the government has taken up the responsibility of funding them with the proper utilities, water, electricity, gas, and it's a plug and play kind of a situation. And I would say that this COVID, where it has created so many problems, it has also created opportunities, and it has created opportunities in the service sector specifically. We've seen around 500 million investment coming just in the startups and the service sector in the country in the first 10 11 10 months of this year. So this is a good news. And also since Pakistan was not that badly hit, there are many international investors who are looking towards Pakistan for starting their new ventures. So we are hoping that with this new regime, uh, um, we will get a lot of opportunity for these new investors. Samsung has recently announced that they will be setting up a plant in Pakistan, and Uniqlo from Japan is coming over. And we already have around 1,000 investors. And I would like to mention that whoever comes to Pakistan never leaves Pakistan. They're quite satisfied. They get good rate of return on the investments that they make. But just to start off is the primary thing, and we really want a good mix of investments from all over the world, not just China, but from all over the world, and especially South Asia and our regional this region. And we are hoping that as of now the volumes are very low. The volumes of trade and investment from these region is low, and I would say it's basically a political reason which is behind this. And with the situation, I hope the situation in Afghanistan gets better, and the situation also, because people then would be more comfortable coming to Pakistan and making investments here.
Great, thank you, Farina. And it seems that Hassan's going to come knocking on your door very soon for some opportunities there. So before I go back to Hassan, Sanjay, can you tell us a little bit about how this report looks so comprehensively at the investment landscape in the region, and what you found to be the most restrictive policies that deter interregional investments? And what would your suggestions be on what should be changed quickest, and also what incentives will this require? Over to you.
Thank you. Thank you. So I think I will talk both of inward and outward investment, because they are, in a sense, a part of firm strategies. Both are equally important when we talk of intra-regional investment. So let's start with the outward foreign investment, which we use OFDI as shorthand. So I think there are the restrictions on outward FDI in the region, in South Asia, are strong in most countries, except India and to some extent Sri Lanka. So I think our report, our authors, all of us believe that this is really an anachronism in today's day and age. The mindset, which Ehsan also referred to, this is a mindset of the 70s, of the 60s and 70s, where we had issues like foreign exchange shortages and lack of free flow of capital. We live in a very different world today. Let me give just some highlights of the restrictions that we have detailed a lot in the report. But for example, there is lack of transparency in outward investment regimes, right? So this is a big problem, right? So in Afghanistan and the Maldives, for example, there is no explicit mention of outward investment in the national laws. In Bhutan, there is permission needed from the Royal Monetary Authority and the Ministry of Finance to hold foreign assets, foreign securities, and the Ministry of Finance and Industry regulate the establishment of business ventures abroad. But again, there is not enough detail if somebody really wants to start going about this. Nepal has been a very interesting case because there is an act restricting foreign investment abroad since 1964. It prohibits actually outward investment. But the Foreign Exchange Regulation Act of 2019, Clause 4A, allows non-resident Nepalis to retain investments while earning money abroad. And this is a loophole that has been used to invest overseas by some Nepali investors. But it shouldn't have to be this way, is the point. Okay. In Bangladesh, which has been, again, quite active, apart from Pran, many other companies have been looking both in the region and globally. There was a lot of restrictions until September 2015, when the Foreign Exchange Act was amended. And then in 2018, the government waived mandatory permissions from Bangladesh Bank. But even so, this was for opening just small liaison offices. And to date, it is still the point. The point to remember is that it is still discretionary, and the mindset does remain that we're not in the business of outward investment as such. It is still very much of a inward. The whole mindset is attracting inward investment, and Bangladesh not being at the stage of a big overseas investment player, which we think is antithetical to where developments are taking and the entrepreneurial spirit of Bangladeshi investors. In Pakistan, all outward investments are subject to approval by the State Bank of Pakistan, which is fine. But again, there hasn't been much happening, as Farina also reminded us. In terms of inward policies, now let me just come quickly to inward policies. The problem in the region is that actual investment on the ground, is very different from the policies that are on paper, right? So devil's in the detail. There are onerous sector restrictions that take place. Regime look great on paper, but once we start looking at actual investment possibilities in specific sectors, I think things don't look so rosy. So, and these, of course, affect all investment, not just from investment from within South Asia. Let me also speak to some specific regional aspect of inward investment. So, India has had some kinds of restrictions in place in terms of currency and so on. But currently, the most germane restriction in India regionally is on those countries that share a land border with India, or where the investment in India is situated in or is a citizen of such a country which shares a land border with India. They need to go through the government route. That means government needs to approve inward investment as opposed to the so-called automatic route. Okay. So this is a sort of regional aspect of investment. So Cecil, you asked about what are the incentives to change, right? So I think this is very important today. And I think dynamic entrepreneurs like what we have on our panel today, represented by Ehsan and Pran, I think they need the freedom to operate as the logic of competitiveness. The logic of international trade remains as strong as ever, right? Notwithstanding all the noises globally, right? You need to be a part of. So today, in order to be competitive and agile, right? Especially including in crisis situations such as the ones we faced over the last 2 years, a firm must have at its command all possibilities of imports, exports, being able to receive FDI or engage in outward FDI. And government policies do need to understand this, right? Restrictive, yes, we understand that restrictive outward investment policies are driven by balance of payments concerns, but our report argues that even for small economies and even for those with such concerns, gradually relaxing outward investment restrictions is important, both from a competitiveness standpoint as well as for the need to be agile in a crisis situation. And this can be done gradually, as indeed Bangladesh has started doing, slowly. But we would, of course, argue that it needs to go beyond case by case. There need to be some sort of general rules whereby firms don't necessarily need to, go to the authorities for approval. And it can be done within a framework, a macroeconomic framework that allows appropriate reporting and feedback mechanisms and so on. But OFDI, so the big point here is that outward investment in today's day and age is as important for firms remaining competitive and agile, right? In crisis and both in normal situations, because they're two sides of the same coin. And this is something that we go at great lengths in the report to talk about. Thank you.
Great, super, Sanjay. So Ahsan, can you tell us from your personal experience, what are some of the key restrictions that you faced in trying to invest in the region? And if you had your way, what are those that you would want to see changed to facilitate investments in the region?
I would say, I think Sanjay Bhai's reports has already covered quite a bit. So one of our biggest challenge was getting an approval from our regulators here in Bangladesh. I think what Sanjay Bhai has also mentioned, like, so this land border issue, like, so since we are very close neighbors, the approval process is a little bit complicated that we had to face in India. But I feel that, like, say, regardless of whatever challenges that we have with our regulators, I think there is a more holistic thing behind. I feel it's a stereotype. It's a lack of understanding that we don't have, as human beings, trusting our neighbors more than, we feel that when we want to talk about export, let's go to North America and let's go to Europe, like, so that's the preconceived thinking that people have in our part of the world, that, probably doing regional trade is probably not the most sensible thing to do. I think it is how people get more and more educated. And again, thanks to COVID, that it is training us new things for the new world. And Sanjay Bhai mentioned about higher container freight, and this is such a strong reason in order to have food security for a small country like Bangladesh. I feel that we have to integrate with our northeastern part of India neighbor that we have. It's going to give them automatic access to our market, which is beautiful market called Bangladesh, which is going to change completely the agriculture landscape of people in northeastern part of India who do not have any export possibilities, if they don't come into Bangladesh. And I feel that, countries need to really, really understand the requirements of general citizens like us, that, it is the business people that have to connect, because for hundreds of years, like, say, our countries were the same. We were connecting, and our regional business were our backbone of our livelihood. So, there were people, Afghans were operating in Bangladesh maybe 300 years ago, like, say, before, our generations were in this world. So I feel that the time has come when, after COVID, in order to have food security, we have to reach out to Meghalaya. And we have to see how we can use the land-man ratio of Meghalaya to see how we can feed the Bangladeshis, because Australian grain and Canadian grain is not able to reach us during COVID because the freight prices have shot up so high. And inexpensive imports coming in from China will not be able to, feed the requirements of a great nation called India. So I feel that it's the neighbors like us which will reach out to bigger markets like India. And it is the, rule of the economy will start playing. And I think the rules of the government will have to play a role, and government will have to look into bigger things, rather than trying to restrict its nations or citizens to do business among ourselves. And we have to go back 300 years ago, and we have to do more business with our regional neighbors. And I would say that is how the world was, and we have to go back to the world because it's a post-COVID new world out here. So it's just a change that is coming into the world today. Thank you.
Yeah, thanks, Ahsan. I think really that important point that it's as much as about mindset as it is about policies and regulations. So on this topic, Hector, I'm going to turn back to you. You've had the opportunity to serve in other regions. You've worked in Latin America and Africa, and both are regions that actually have higher levels of intra-regional trade and investment. What makes those investments more attractive in those regions, and what are some of the lessons that we could draw for South Asia? Any experience that you want to bring to bear?
Thanks. Thanks, Cecile. I just a note to maybe agree with Sanjay on the importance of the outward sort of a regulation or investments, and then I guess the other point that as I mentioned, it fits right into my view. I think, look, on the regions that I worked in Latin America and Africa mostly. But maybe just taking a step back, the report that Sanjay and colleagues so they identified there are 3 or 4 main things, right, which I think were pretty much summarized just now, which is there's a lack of trust generally between countries. There is a lack or low market knowledge. Then there's poor infrastructure that tends to be in all countries. It's not a privilege of South Asia. Protected markets and very unfavorable FDI regimes, right? So if you look through that lens, which I think is a very good framework to look into the other regions. For instance, you come to Latin America, right? And I don't want to paint here that Latin America is it should be the poster child, but I think I think regional integration is a journey, right? And probably Latin America is a little bit ahead. That's how I would put it, right? I think there is more knowledge and trust among countries for historical reasons, for language reasons, because these countries became independent, 50, 100, 150 years ago. So, that there's a longer process. So I think that's one big difference. I think the other is these are countries generally in Latin America that are very, how can I put it? They have very low tariffs, right? So they have slowly used to trade with each other and trade with the US, which is, the big gorilla in the region, and with Europe as well. So, so they've been very much open to FDI, okay? And there are very few restrictions to outward investment. This is the other key piece in Latin America. There are very few countries that actually have some sort of restriction to where their companies invest. I think the fact that in Latin America you've had multinationals for many decades also creates a different sort of a competitive right? And if you look at how this has played out, I think it also has to do with the type of products that Latin America produces. So it's big on mineral resources. It's big on agricultural resources that by nature are tradable, and you need to have an international view to this. But also there are a lot about services, right? So Latin America has really become a region that in many cases it manufactures very little of what it consumes, and it exports services, and it trades services. So this has created, for instance, some phenomena that we as IFC have actually supported, which is banking, right? So banks in Latin America, you have the Brazilian banks have expressive presence in the rest of Latin America. The Colombian banks have a very relevant presence in Central America. And then, banking following local companies and taking advantage of sort of free regulations, right? But this is a process. If we had having this conversation 20 years ago, you would see that most of these countries would be basically looking at the US. In the case of Mexico, for instance, they would be looking at the US, and even a country like Mexico that is, still 85% of its trade is really with the US. They just cannot diversify away, right? It's a process. So I think that's one lesson, in the sense that, the items identified by the report, which were mentioned, the trust, the knowledge, the favorable FDI regimes. I think that's one. I think in the case of Africa, it's a completely different play, in my view. I think it's, first of all, it's many countries, right? So it's, in South Asia, you have, to a certain extent, a very small number of countries, but in Africa, one of the paradoxes is that you have a lot of countries, but it feels like they have a more cohesive approach to regional integration, like it's a priority for most of them. But so it is from the policy perspective, but it's also many of the businesses only make sense if you look at them on a regional basis, right? And this is what we've been supporting. So if you are a telecom infrastructure company building towers, your business only achieves the economies of scale that you need if you go into 1, 2, 3, 4, 15 markets in Africa, right? And I think this is playing. I think the other piece is, there is a lot of mineral resources or natural resources in Africa, and that attracts a certain type and, looks. I think the other piece is that politically and politically, I guess, diplomatically, there is a much more concerted effort, right, around pushing for trade integration. And this shows a lot of what we do in Africa actually has we as IFC that we support has a regional bent, because this is what companies or private companies are doing. I think I would maybe to leave with a message that it is a journey, and this journey is actually taken by companies like Pran and others, right? These are the guys that look at it and you say, yes, there are challenges, but they're manageable, or we can find a way. And this is how things. And I think the trust is built by looking at a company like Pran or like others that actually does it, is successful, and then encourages others to follow, right? And of course, I think on the public sector and other authorities, this needs to be facilitated and enabled. But it is these examples that I think we need more of in South Asia to really create this dynamic. I'll stop there.
Thanks, Hector. And that's a great segue for my next question for you, Hassan. So what do you see as the role for firms like yours or business associations, chambers of commerce, to actually encourage more of this intra-regional investment? And are there any regional business organizations that have a role to play in your view?
I think we all have a role to play. I think our chambers, we need to understand our business prospect of the regional connectivity and how we can do more business with the region. But I feel that I want to refer to what Mr. Hector had to say. I think it's a journey, right? It's a journey where people need to learn. Our regulators need to learn, our business people need to learn, and our trade bodies also need to learn. And this is a case of where, you guys in IFC and World Bank, you can start doing advocacy, which you are currently doing. So you've made this beautiful paper, and Sanjay Bhai has done a great job at it. So I feel that you are doing a good job. You are doing an advocacy, and I see an explanation that what can be the upside of regional integration can be. How many jobs it can create, how it can change the lives of millions of people who are in the region. How the agriculture can be, impacted, how the case of integration can be logically understood by everybody. And I think it's a journey that is not going to reap rewards in one day. Our diplomatic affairs have hurt our inter-regional business so much that there is a lot of work that needs to be done. But again, if we have certain success stories, then we are too small to be declared as one. But I think we are in a journey, and once we succeed in the journey, people ask me that whether I have had a wonderful experience of operating in India or Nepal. I feel that one day Pran will be a bigger company than what we are in Bangladesh, and we'll call India to be our largest market because they deserve it, because it's a country of 1 billion people. So I feel that this journey that we are on, and this journey that we have started, the business people have started the journey, regulators have started understanding the concepts and the benefits of our regional integration. And I feel that the COVID has really, really taught us a good lesson. And I feel that once we are in the journey, and I think we will see light at the end of the tunnel, and we'll do more and more in terms of regional integration in days to come. Thank you.
Thank you. Thanks, Hassan. Farina, maybe in the same spirit, is there any effort amongst boards of investments in the region to try to coordinate efforts, work together to support more intra-regional investment?
On this, I would say that unfortunately, I don't think there is any coordination with the Board of Investments or the investment promotion agencies within the region. And primarily, I think SAARC can play an important platform and provide a platform for doing that. We can take it up from the SAARC's platform. We do have some, liaison with Bangladeshi Board of Investment, BIDA, and also the Export Processing Promoting Zone Visa Authority. So we shared one of our consultants from JICA. She was also a consultant to these boards. So she arranged our meetings with them. So we tried to share experiences, and they had some questions for us and we had for them, but it's not a kind of a formal setup or a formal engagement. It's more of an informal thing. But I think, yes, there is a need to have a formal setup and, know the concerns of the investors from within the region, why they are reluctant to come invest or do business in the region. Whereas we all see that I think the East Asia, Europe, America, they're all good examples where people with similar cultures, with similar backgrounds, they feel more comfortable going to another country which is just across the border and or very close by, and they usually have families there and relatives there too. But unfortunately, no such mechanism exists as far as the South Asian countries are concerned. However, for the Central Asian republics, we are kind of engaging with their board of with their investment promotion agencies, and we might have an agreement amongst them so as to formalize an arrangement where they we could meet regularly and discuss issues and share experiences. The Prime Minister of Pakistan has visited these countries, two of them, Kazakhstan and Kyrgyzstan, and he also took a business delegation with him. And the feedback from the people who were accompanying him is very positive. And they say that there is a lot of opportunity, especially in they are energy rich countries, and Pakistan is energy short country. They can provide us with energy at a good, reasonable rate, which we need, and also other similar tastes, similar, customs and situation in Afghanistan. One unfortunate part is that we do not have land border with the five countries of the Central Asia. But if the situation in Afghanistan is stabilized, then we are thinking of having a railway track all the way through them to Kazakhstan. And I think from there onwards, there will be a lot of opportunity for the business and investment which will be created. With Sri Lanka, we do have a free trade agreement, but the investment chapter of that agreement is still under discussion, and we are still finalizing the modalities relating to that. And I think with Sri Lanka also we can have this arrangement. Thank you.
Thank you, Farina. Sanjay, one of the aspects of this report that I found particularly interesting is how you develop this concept of knowledge connectivity, how knowledge about the investment landscape influences key decisions. Tell us a little bit more about this, and where do you see the potential of knowledge links to be tapped? And I'll ask you to be brief because we're reaching the end of our time together.
Sure. So indeed, knowledge connectivity is one of the things where I think our report has broken some new ground. So let's just unravel what it means to begin with. Knowledge connectivity refers to how well firms know the economic and investment environment in another country. So if there is a poor knowledge connectivity, then there are high information costs and costs of economic engagement. If there is good knowledge connectivity, then it reduces the sunk costs. You have to incur fixed costs of entering in any other country, and it reduces the costs of doing that by reducing the frictions of searching, matching, and contracting. Our report documents the different strategies used by these regional pioneers in South Asia to reduce entry costs and facilitate their entry. And there are, multiple ways in which they have been doing that, right? So, for example, its own learning. A firm can learn through its own experience, right? So it can start by exporting or through non-equity arrangements. This experience helps the firm to then go on to become a bigger investor in the future. Firms can learn from other pioneers, right? So this is the information spillovers, and it works best within a business group. And I spoke earlier about how outside of the business group, information doesn't. Firms can also learn or develop through its own social networks, right? And we found case study evidence of this, that every single case study that we had in the report, we studied about 10 in some detail, all the pioneers had a ethnic or social link to the first outward investment destination. And this, in the case of services investments, right, this actually presence of a network matters even more than productivity improvements in its home base. What do we conclude from this? And I think this will go back to what Farina was just saying. Information is a public good, right? And therefore it requires a public intervention to make up for deficiencies in this. The addressing, for example, what we call sticky knowledge, where knowledge doesn't flow easily, or the case of the missing herd, but despite regional pioneers, there has not been a herd phenomenon in investment. So what can policymakers do is to take an integrated approach, right, to international engagement. And in fact, in the report, many of the things that we mentioned do not. I think they are a bit different because they do not entail large fiscal outlays, incentives, and so on. No, we're talking about focusing on connectivity, knowledge connectivity, digital connectivity, but they could have a positive impact on FDI. So I'll give.
Sanjay, I'm not hearing you anymore. So while we wait for you to come back, I'll just turn to Hector. So Hector, one thing we've heard is everyone has a role to play in all of this. Where do you see IFC supporting an effort to work with business organizations or other sort of key knowledge players in this space?
Okay, thanks, Cecile. Look, I think a little bit of what Hassan mentioned. I think a lot of our role here is it's advocacy. I mean, we will invest, we will support, we will finance, but there are not as many opportunities as we wish there would be, right? So I think what we've done is it's a lot of advocacy that falls into different buckets. I mean, very quickly, there is one thing that we're doing, which is we used to informally provide advice to our clients or to potential clients. If you're going to Africa, you could do this or this or that. We have actually created a business line around it. So we actually provide formal advisory and help companies identify partners, identify investors to go from one country to another, particularly, right? So we've done this successfully in the regions. We have a pipeline in South Asia. And we hope that 1 year from now we will be implementing some of these opportunities, right? And then we could also invest, but the initial piece is let's advise, let's help them. Bangladeshi company wants to go into Africa, into East Africa, so we know we are there. We invest, we know them, so we invest. That's one piece. The second piece, I think, is a more classical IFC World Bank approach, which has been it's helping governments on climate investment climate advisory, right? Which is very well. So helping them with the FDI regulatory frameworks, both inbound and outbound, and partnering with investment promotion agencies, right, to help them really to maximize the impact that they have, and to try to create a sort of a positive trend. So we are now together co-hosting with BIDA, with the Bangladesh International Investment, the International Bangladesh International Investment Summit, right? So this is something that happens at the end of November, which we expect it becomes a tradition, and it signals the need to have. We hope that intra-regional plays a big part of this. And then I think we are doing a lot of, I think, and taking 2-3 steps back. We've been doing as IFC, as World Bank Group, to actually what we call country private sector diagnostics. So we look at a country and we look, these are the gaps that are needed for the private sector to develop. And you look at those reports that hopefully provide a roadmap for reforms that the government can able to increase private sector participation. Many of them are related to trade or opening or FDI, right? So it's a combination of these things. I think we need to keep it dynamic. Some years we'll need to do more of that. Some years you need to do more of those. But until we have enough pipeline that we can say, okay, we don't need to do a lot more advocacy. But I think we're far from that.
Thank you. Thank you, Hector. And I think Sanjay is back. So back to you, Sanjay.
Okay. Can you hear me?
Yes, we can, Sanjay. Oh, now we can't. You're on mute. You're on mute.
Okay. Yeah. So I was saying that there are approaches to address sticky knowledge and the missing herd phenomenon in South Asia. And I think I was going to give a couple of examples that, let's say, smaller countries in South Asia can target affiliates, global affiliates of large firms that have already made the investment of coming into South Asia. So, for example, there is a huge presence of German companies in India. So instead of courting these German companies in Bonn or Berlin, they could easily come to India and target and court these companies, right? So they have already incurred the knowledge and sunk costs of learning about South Asia. So this is a very fruitful approach which countries in the region can employ. Similarly, courting high visibility foreign investors is important, right? Because such firms engage for long term and they can attract follower investors, right? Again, that knowledge spillover. Just by the fact that they are there in the region, others will get attracted. And these firms can can afford high sunk costs, right? So I think they are, again, fruitful for countries to pursue. We, in the report, we also identify cross-border information enhancing and network development activities, which are distinct from traditional connectivity. For example, supporting industry and business associations, industry meetings, but with a focus, not in the way that it is normally done. It is including cross-border women's networks. Industries should tap on industry veterans who have already succeeded in penetrating neighboring countries. There's a treasure trove of information and knowledge which is inside those heads of those industry veterans, which can be tapped on. So I will just end by saying that one has to take both the governments and the public agencies have to take an integrated approach and realize that in today's day and age, we can't really start differentiating inward investment, outward investment, or traditional connectivity and digital connectivity, because digital connectivity, as Ehsan has reminded us again and again about the post-COVID opportunities. This is it's all part of the same international engagement strategy. So if countries and public agencies start thinking in this integrated way, actually they will have to focus less on those fiscal incentives, spending large parts of their GDP in attracting companies, and focus instead on these efficient ways and working together with the region, and go on this journey as Hector has also reminded us. Thank you.
Great. Thank you, Sanjay. And before we do our final round of questions, Ehsan, there's a question for you from one of our viewers, Prasant Sharma. And this is more on the trade side, less on the investment, but I think it's still really relevant. The question is, what has been your experience and the initial gains that you have achieved with using the inland waterway transport between India and Bangladesh? Also a topic that we at the World Bank are very interested in.
Waterways transportation is the future, because I feel that, waterways is reducing the cost manifold. Just to tell you, our transportation cost between India and Bangladesh will come down to 10%, and please understand, today, if you're spending 100, our cost of reaching India will be 10 if we are able to use our waterways in a very scientific manner. But still, we have got a lot of work to be done, and we, private sector, will do the work that needs to be done. Because government has given us the policy to export products from Bangladesh to India through the riverine route, which was connected hundreds and years ago. We are able to connect to West Bengal. We are not able to connect to Assam. So I hope we'll be able to connect to all the Indian states, especially in the coastal states, in the southern part of India, western part of India, and eastern part of India. So we should be able to take a small liner vessel from Bangladesh, and we should be able to call on all the Indian ports, because our history says that we have to do more with the land border connectivity that we have, and also with the riverine connectivity that we have. But we have to reduce our cost of labor to unload, and we just have to work on our port infrastructure. And believe me, Indian exporters can also export to Bangladesh at a nominal rate, because thanks to COVID again, that after COVID, we have been able to improve our train connectivity between Bangladesh and India. So our cost of transportation has come down thanks to the crisis, that Bangladesh and India became closer through our train connectivity. And I hope with the riverine connectivity, our exporters in India can reach to, southern part of India, southern part of Bangladesh, and also anywhere in Bangladesh at a very, very nominal cost. And the cost will come down to 10% from the current prevailing cost that is pretty high. Thank you very much.
Great. Thank you, Hassan. So final question to all the panelists, and you have a minute each, so it's really a rapid fire. If there's one change you would like to see in the next 12 months to support greater inter-regional investment, what would it be? Farina, let's start with you. You're on mute,
Yes.
Farina.
Yes. So I really think that an investment seminar, along with a business-to-business interaction amongst the regional countries of South Asia, would be really, really very helpful to boost investments and business opportunities between the people of these countries, because I see that there's a lot of misinformation. There have been a lot of changes in the rules, regulations, which are constantly not marketed the way they should be. So this will provide an opportunity where people and the government levels and also the businesses will know, what opportunities exist in which part of the country.
Great, wonderful. More information. Hassan, what would your wish be?
My wish would be, two wish. I think one for the government and from all the sides. I feel the government needs to understand the benefits of regional trade. I think if the governments understand that business prospects there, I think it could be good. Private sector, I think we should see the broader picture. The regional business is good for the private sector, and that's how we can help our businesses. And I feel that if government understand and the private sector understand, we private sector have to be the one to be the strong driving force for our regional connectivity and regional business. So I think a little bit more understanding from our side will be very helpful.
Great, thank you, Hassan. Hector.
Well, maybe since Hassan asked for two things, I'll ask for two things as well. So one is, we would really like to see many more examples, of private companies doing this. I think that's going to drive the dynamics, as Hassan puts it. I think the other piece, maybe not in a 12-month, but in a 12 to 24 months, to see kind of a regional investment forum, right? And not that has a really regional sort of approach that is business to business, as Farina puts it, where we discuss it, so to try to grow the trust, right? Which I think is an important thing.
Super. Thank you, Hector. Sanjay, final words to you.
Thank you. So I think it would be too unrealistic to expect the governments to remove all outward foreign investment regulations. But I think signaling their intention to do so, right away within a time frame, to start that journey. I think right now it's not even on the radar of most countries that here is, there is big opportunities right here at our doorsteps. So signaling that it's important and beginning that journey of actually starting to dismantle outward investment restrictions, I think would be a great step to capitalize on all these opportunities that are, as Hassan has eloquently reminded us, that are at our doorstep.
Right. Thank you, Sanjay. So we are reaching the end of our time together. This has been an incredibly rich conversation. I want to thank all of our panelists. It would be a tall order for me to summarize, but I'm going to just tease out a few messages. First of all, I think this has been an upbeat conversation, right? I think we all recognize that we're starting from a very low base in South Asia, but other regions have shown the way. We have lessons that we can learn from them. And I think I heard many of you also say that COVID actually can be an opportunity. This has created a greater momentum for change and greater momentum for intra-regional trade and investment. Second point is we know that some of there are restrictive policies, there are restrictive regulations, and there's also the mindsets, right? This is a lot about everyone stepping up their game and creating these networks of knowledge, of connectivity, and boosting these investments through changing mindsets. Everyone mentioned that this is a journey. It's not going to happen overnight. And as Sanjay reminded us, even in the next 12 months, that this will be a progressive approach. And then finally, that everyone here has a role to play, right? The private sector is the main actor. They're the driving force. They can also be the driving force for change and advocating. Governments have a role to play in creating this enabling environment for investments. And then organizations like ours, IFC and World Bank, have a role to play on the knowledge side, but also supporting private sector actors, governments in their changes, and business organizations. So there's clearly a lot that we can do together on this agenda. But generally, I feel upbeat. I can see that there are many, many opportunities for the future. So let me read out our poll results. We asked all of you, what is the main constraint to intra-regional investment in South Asia? And 37% of you said that restrictive FDI investment regimes is the main constraint. So obviously, there's still work to be done there. And that is followed by low levels of trust amongst countries, 25%, lack of financing, 22%, and then finally, knowledge and networking gaps. So I think that gives a good temperature of what people think and where the efforts will lie in the future. I would like, before we close, to thank all of you who have joined us today, all of our audience. We've had very an interactive session. A lot of questions have been answered by our expert bloggers, Gonzalo and Ravi. So thank you for that. Thanks for your questions and thanks for those responses. I want to thank this wonderful panel, Farina, Asan, Sanjay, and Hector. Thank you for joining us today and for such a rich conversation. And a big shout out to my team. There's a lot of work that goes on behind the scenes to put on these events. We have a short survey on our page. You can also use the QR code. We're asking you to respond to 4 quick questions, and this will help us make our One South Asia conversation better. We're also asking you to tell us what topics you're interested in for the future. So with this, I'll bring this event to close. I want to thank you all for being here today. Also, our shout out to and thanks to our colleagues from conference services who help a lot with these events. We'll see you in 2 months and continue to interact with us. Please use the hashtag OneSouthAsia. We also will be hosting this event and you'll have an opportunity to interact with us on social media. Thank you all very much and see you soon.